All right, I'm excited. This is the very first time I'm doing this. I have no idea how it's going to go, so bear with me. But this is ShareGrid's first roundtable discussion, and today I want to talk about kind of those slow times in production. As freelancers, we're all freelancers, and I think it's really important to kind of talk about what do you do with that time when you're not working. I'm here with Matt Workman at Cinematography Database, Christopher Gosch, another awesome ShareGrid member, and Mark LaFleur, who's a longtime ShareGrid member as well. Thank you guys for joining me. Can you guys share your experiences maybe when you first started off in this film industry, when you kind of realized, oh, wait, I have to keep hustling to make money? Mark, you want to go first?
Sure. Thanks. I'm guessing we probably all have pretty similar stories to tell, but yeah, I feel like the biggest things were because I moved to LA knowing a lot of people that worked in the business, a lot of creative people, and I've never, it's probably a terrible thing, but I've never worried about money. I don't have money, but I've never stressed about it until literally my checking account goes into the negative and I realize, oh my God, I've got to sell something to pay my rent. So I've always welcomed that time and never really freaked out about it. Luckily I've somehow been able to work, from paycheck to paycheck, but I always took that time to collaborate with my friends, the people that I met in film school, the people I met out here, people that seemed passionate, that were pursuing something interesting, people that I thought I could learn from. I feel like, and I'm still doing that now with my downtime. I can't wait to have it. It's less frequent now because I'm busier and because of the job I have now. But still, any chance I get, I'll end up working 30 days straight because I'm taking every weekend and either trying to find some little passion piece or just collaborating with someone on something that either we're trying to kick off some weird web series or we're just trying to do a lens test or we're, or really trying to collaborate with people that we think we're onto something, that we think we've got some new project that's just going to be the next greatest thing. Even if it flops, it's just exercising that creative muscle as much as possible and meeting other people that either can inspire you or you can collaborate with, that you can elevate each other.
Yeah, I actually think you raise a good point. I mentor SU students and I tell them all the time, because they ask me this question, and I always say, obviously you need to make a living. You need to, especially in cities like LA and New York, they're really expensive. You need to make some money. But I always say, if you're focusing on just like the money aspect of it, then you really need to rethink your career path a little bit, because it shouldn't be about that. And so now I always look forward to these times where it's slow. And I always tell them that when it's slow, obviously position yourself financially so that you're okay. But when it's slow, don't worry about the fact that you need to make money, but use that time constructively to further your career. Matt, do you agree with that?
Yeah, so I think that's good advice now, and I think I've tried to give advice to be productive. But to be honest, about when I first moved to New York City and I came up against that, I didn't know what to do. Really, definitely. I think I got into like hobbies. So I was out of college and I was still snowboarding, skateboarding, breakdancing, and I just spent a lot of time doing things outside of the film industry, which is probably not the best thing to do, but that's truthfully what I was doing. Because working is a loose term, because I was just Craigslist and Mandy all the time. So even when those jobs popped off, it was still like, am I really is this really like a job? I don't think I had like jobs until a couple of years actually into it. I was just like would show up and help out on things. So I think like out of school in New York or LA, I just clung very closely to Mandy and Craigslist, and through that SVA NYU Columbia, and I just kept working on student films. And I would kind of just tried to be near people that were doing things, right? And even if they weren't like real jobs, like I was just on set helping with no position. Like I wasn't an AC or a second or even an intern or PA. I was just there. I was taking stills on other people's music videos. I was just doing like whatever I could to be near the people that were doing things. And then after I don't even know how many years it was, then I was like getting jobs that paid money. So I think that's the truthful story. But yeah, if you can go to film festivals and conventions if you can afford to go out to those things and just try to be near the people that are making it happen if you're not that person in the beginning.
Well, I just think that there's a big intensity that you go up and down filmmaking because we're working 12 hours a day or 14 or 16 hours a day. And then suddenly when you're not working, you're like, oh, what do I do at this time? Yeah. And if you're not organized and prepared, like with how you're going to approach your off time, it can be great, but it can also be very frustrating because how are you going to get the next job? How are you going to connect with people? Yeah. What's your creative outlet? So when Mark's talking about always doing projects, that's something I agree with. If you can get out there and keep going and expanding your creative abilities, doing stuff for free or your own ideas, I think that's something that is a very, very good off time.
I think you guys also touched on a really important thing, which is just any job, taking any job. This is the other thing I tell them, and I'll share another quick story with you guys, and I would like you guys to do the same. But during that, one of my lulls when I was just like an AC, I went on Craigslist looking for anything I could get my hands on. I just needed to make money, and I needed some kind of creative outlet. And I found this like super, super small like documentary company / like event production company. And they just cover events. And I thought, oh, okay, cool. They, of course, advertise it as if it was like very docu style and it was like, going to be really good for filmmaking. And it wasn't. They basically get hired to cover like really rich people's events, so like weddings and like fundraisers and things like that. And they only had a DVX 100, which I knew pretty damn well out of film school. But I took it, and I ended up shooting a lot of like 2-year-old, 3-year-old birthday parties for like really rich families. And I haven't really publicly came out with this yet, but here we are. Here it is. But like I was an AC / PA. Like I was so young in the industry, so it didn't matter. But my point is that I took it and I kind of swallowed my pride and I owned it because I knew that I said, okay, I have a camera in my hands. Check, right? I'm filming a subject. Who cares what the subject is? It's a subject. There's a narrative. It's a birthday party, or there's family relationships that I need to connect. There's B-roll to get, and there's inserts and things like that. I'm getting paid. It's a job. So it was kind of fulfilling all those needs, but most importantly, it was still that challenge of like showing up to set or showing up every day, putting a camera in my hands, and then creating some kind of imagery for the editor to cut together. And I owned it, and I really think that was like a key moment for me because I instead of like sulking or being upset and not finding work, I took a job that actually paid me pretty damn well, and I was able to kind of still do the things that I want to do, though I'm not shooting A-list celebrities or whatever, an actual TV show. It was still a good step in the right direction.
I think that one thing that we sort of touched upon also about those downtimes, and it's hard to tell people not to stress out about it because finances are nothing to joke about. But I do feel like I tend to work with people occasionally where you can sort of feel more desperation in them when they're working with them, like especially young people where they're like, hey, I gotta work. They don't phrase it like that, but you can just feel that they're like hurting for a job, and I'm all about like helping people out for a job. But I feel like if you approach things with the attitude of money isn't everything, sort of like what you said at the beginning, and opportunity is everything, you could go on Craigslist and find some terrible job that pays you nothing. But if you go in with a great attitude and you do a really good job on set and you impress one of those people who happens to be really talented and is doing some other job that's like ends up being big, and they see instead of some desperate kid or some kid who's on set and is like, I'm better than this job, I'm only taking this job because nothing else is going on, I've got some downtime. No way. If you're the PA and you're getting coffee, you get coffee like better than anybody. You bring napkins with you, you bring stirrers, you bring sweet and low, you make an impression on somebody so that on that next job, that AD is going to be like, oh my God, that kid was the best PA ever. And I think I heard him saying he shoots stuff, so maybe he can AC for me. Let me give him a call. Yeah. And I that's why that I was always excited about downtime because it was like, all right, let's start calling people. Let's see what's going on. Let me get on any set I can possibly get on, because even the worst shoots I've ever been on, the ones where at the end of the day, I sort of wish I didn't take the job. I either made a contact or got some experience out of it, or even if it's like the experience of, wow, I'll never work for that person again. It's still value, and taking every opportunity as an opportunity instead of work.
I was thinking back to what you were saying about what it takes to kind of up your game. So Robert Rodriguez, I don't remember when he wrote his first book, he was talking about making his movie. He'd actually gone and done tons of videos with his brothers and sisters and put them in front of the camera and kind of learned the process of filmmaking before he ever made even his first little $7,000 movie. And when you get on set and you just start doing stuff and holding a camera, no matter what it is, it gives you the time and experience to move up. You know, we all start at one level, and then you get a little bit of skill, a little bit more skill, and eventually like, oh, okay, I know how to light the scene, or I know how to do this, or create a different skill. And that's not done when you are jumping on the paying job just as the first AC or the PA. It actually happens a lot of times when you are shooting that freebie job, or shooting in the industrial video that you get to, you know, take an extra 10 minutes and get an interesting angle that you wouldn't get when you're working with a PA. So I was just kind of following up to what you were saying.
No,
I know it's off.
No, that's a great point. It actually leads in. I was going to ask you guys next. You know, can you guys talk about during this free time taking free work, right? Forget the ones that pay. Taking jobs where, you know, you believe in the script, or you like the director, or you like the DP if you're directing, whatever, and you just want to create and you just want to make something. Can you guys share any experiences like that back then, or even more currently?
Oh, I do that all the time. Yeah, it seems like, because I have my regular clients that pay my bills as a DP, and, you know, generally commercials or big companies. And then the intensity of that is not incredibly hard. You know, I went from doing almost 10 years on TV shows where I was working 65 hours a week. We called it the Saturday morning wrap, right? By Friday, our call time's 11 a.m. You finish at 4 in the morning, and you get home, and you basically sleep until 1 p.m., do some laundry, and then maybe go out and have fun that Saturday night, and then do your stuff on Sunday, and then you're back to work on Monday morning for another 13, 14 hours. And once you do that, and then you do that for 10 months a year, and then hopefully something in the off season, and then you start that again. And you're such a grind that as a filmmaker, it's great. You get the skills. For me, I went from, you know, thinking I was a DP to actually really being a DP. And moving from that pace to now primarily doing commercial work and music live work has been a great relief, because I don't have to work those 60, well, it's really more like 85 hours a week I'm working on those shows. So the different intensity, now I've brought more creativity back to what I was doing when I was just doing TV shows. Yeah.
Can you, any of you guys, and this is open to whoever wants to jump in, can any of you guys talk about a particular time when you had free time and you made some decision to work on something that really paid off? Like, is there a memorable project or relationship that you made during one of those times?
I had one that wasn't necessarily those two reasons that you mentioned, and this, I hope this doesn't sound too, like, not preachy. I don't know, I'll just say it anyway. Maybe it's been about a year now. I had some downtime, and I live in Los Angeles, and we've been going through a drought, and I was frustrated with the fact that I was driving by all these people using their sprinklers and just spraying water all over the sidewalk. So I was like, what can I do as a filmmaker, you know, or not even that, what can I do? Like, where does my skill set help in this issue that's going on right now? I'm not a scientist, so what do I do? And I decided to make like my own PSA, this like little public service announcement about water conservation. And it was an ambitious shoot. I had to shoot with like 15 little kids. And it was a lot of work, and I spent my own money on it and my own time, but I got out of it this project that hopefully maybe educated a few people, hopefully some young people that'll then, you know, educate the next generation to make less mistakes than we've made. And so at the end of the day, I was like, wow, okay, maybe I did do the tiniest bit of help with that spare time. So that was rewarding. And I mean, as a filmmaker, I was trying to make it look good too. And so there was some reward there. If it was captivating to watch, it would help it, you know, get passed around to people. And I don't know, it ended up being one of the more rewarding things I've ever got to do.
Yeah, nuts. I've seen it, and it's a pretty awesome project. I think we can all agree that when you get in those slow times, like there's like that, I don't know, like you just have to shoot. So you have to film something. Like you just get, and Mark, I know you're a good furniture builder, but like even like creating something, like if I haven't filmed something in like a couple of weeks, I'll want to like paint or like do some kind of project or get some kind of creative outlet going, because like I think as artists we all just need that outlet. But Matt, do you have any memorable stories?
Yeah, sure. And so it kind of ties in with like what we were talking about before, and then taking free work, is that, you know, I used to hang out with the guys that are We Are Variable now. They're sort of split off. So like Khalid and John Bregel, those guys, like we all started in New York at the same time with the 7Ds, and we all did a similar hustle with our free time. We'd always talked about like free time is really more important. It's like once you're offset, that's when the work really happens. So if you kind of watched what we did, and I still do it with this company, is that we all had blogs. So you did a shoot, right? So that's great, and it's going to come out. But what we all did really well was talk about our shoots. So we did the shoot. We'd always bring out a photographer or two, and video sometimes, and we would take professional photos of that shoot. And from there, we would make our blog posts. We'd throw them on Twitter, and it gets talked about. So after the shoot, we use that time to show that we did the shoot, you know. And I think like 5 or 10 years ago, this wasn't really happening. Now you look at it, it's like, this is a big part of it, like the whole Instagram hustle and that sort of thing. And that worked really well for us. So really quickly, I would do posts about the 7D. I was like, hey, we're using this 7D on like real jobs. And that was interesting to a lot of people because the budgets were dropping. They're still dropping. So it's like, oh, so you can make something look decent with a crappy, you know, affordable camera. We would publicize that like crazy. We were our own press outlets. We would blog, and now people vlog and YouTube and all that, and Instagram. And what happened for me as far as free jobs is that basically really big directors would start to hit me up. I didn't have an agent at the time, so they would just get in contact on like MySpace, Facebook, however they found me. And they'd be like, hey, I've got this like really small kind of test kind of shoot. You know, like it doesn't pay anything, but would you come out with like your 7D that you own and shoot this thing for free for me? I was like, hell yes. That's why I put it out there on social media. And so as like an up and comer, in my experience, the free jobs for me were always to get in with the bigger directors. And there's always a bigger director. There's always a bigger producer. And that's how I was using social media, which was my free time, to basically network really deep into these worlds. And it's a small, tiny world. I was in music videos like really hard. I would research all the directors. I would know every production company, every commissioner. I would know when they were landing the jobs. I would know the producers. I knew the DP that got it. I would know the gaffers that were getting those. I would know what rental houses they were coming from. So I just used all this time to understand that small world. And I got very, very small on this and all moved to Los Angeles after a certain point.
Yeah.
But by using social media in my free time, I was able to keep tabs on what was happening.
That's smart.
And a lot of the times, like those people would find me like organically, but I was really blasting social media very hard with me being out there, and that worked very well. So that's what I was doing back then.
I remember telling myself, like, okay, if you're not going to create something, or if you don't have time to shoot, the next best thing is either, like you said, research or some kind of marketing thing for yourself. So I would work on my reel. I'd update my reel. I would update my website, because God knows that always needs updating for all of us when we have current work and you want to keep it current.
Yes.
But then I would also, I'm doing it right now, I'm sure you guys are too. But also, like, I would reach out to either directors that I worked with maybe once, and I don't have that like strong enough relationship with them yet, where it's like, hey man, let's grab a beer. I'm not there yet. I would kind of use that time to get coffee with them, or send them an email about something that I saw them do, and just kind of get the conversation going, just so that you stay relevant with them. And it is genuine. I'm not trying to like play the game, though there is a game to be played here, but I would only contact people that I like genuinely really wanted to work with again. And I really meant it when I would reach out to them, and it usually paid off. So I think that's really important. Like you said, Matt, I mean, you're talking more like kind of doing research and doing the whole social media hustle, but I think also the other thing is to keep those contacts warm. Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
I totally agree. I've kind of been lax on social media. It's something that I'm having to take on in my career now. I guess I went from working, like I said, I was working 10 months out of the year and doing the super, super long work hours. By the time I'm done each week, it's hard to do that. But now I do take pictures, and it's become more and more part of my process now as a filmmaker and cameraman than it ever has been before. Because I'm probably a little older than all three of you guys, so I've been doing it for 2 decades. So we had film when I started, and then no social media. Now it's no film and lots of social media. So it's a big change for me.
It's a new time. I think you bring up a great topic, and we have the perfect person to touch on it, which is Matt Workman. I think, Matt, you've done an incredible job, using Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all of these outlets to really reach your audience and to stay relevant. And this is for anyone, but can any of you guys talk about that change from what it was? I mean, I even remember 6-7 years ago, I don't even know if Instagram was around, but like Instagram and Facebook, I was never thinking about really using that as like a promotional tool. Whereas like now it's necessary. If you want to stay at the top with everyone else, you really need to stay up on your social media game. And this is open for anyone. Can any of you guys comment on that?
I was just to say something quick, because at first I was super against Instagram, because I thought, oh my God, I actually sell my pictures for a living. So I have a side gig where I go out and take beautiful pictures and have a couple thousand of them in stock photos. And I was like, why the hell would I give them away for free? Yeah. And now I realize, the more beautiful pictures I post on Instagram, the more people like them, and the more I'm just showing who I am. So it's become part of what I do on a regular basis.
Yeah. I actually met with I'm not ready to have an agent, but I met with an agent, and she represents like some of the best. So I'm nowhere near ready to work with her. But I met with an agent for DPs a couple months ago just to kind of pick her brain about like the steps I need to take and what it's like. And she actually told me, she goes, keep your Instagram game going, like keep it up. And I was like, really? Really? It's an iPhone, dude. Like it's
a smart agent.
Yeah, but she's smart. I mean, people want good imagery. They just and I thought about it. I was like, well, I guess it's not about the tools you have. It's how you use it. And it's like if you can show good composition and good color and whatever, there's something to be said, even though it's with an iPhone and these ridiculous filters that you can choose from. I mean, that's also why I bought the 7 Plus, because it has that portrait mode, which is pretty amazing. If you haven't checked out ShareGrid and my Instagram, check it out. I'm doing some portraits and they look pretty awesome. But I thought that was a really interesting point to be made by her. But Matt, I would love to hear your thoughts on like upping your social media game, especially when you have free time to do so.
I mean, I wouldn't say, so. I mean, there's a couple people like Ryan Booth, who I'm going to go see this weekend, and colleagues, and people that went using it as like a portfolio route and like putting your work up there. And I think that that's fine. And it obviously works for some people, but in my opinion, Instagram social media is more about like, who are you with? Like not showing like your food, but like if your food is like, oh, you're in Germany for Camerimage, show that. Yeah. And then like, it's like, oh, you just worked with that director. Just take the selfie together and be like, oh, he worked with him. And like, so people pay attention to that stuff. And you'd be surprised that like we're talking for DP specifically. It's like, oh, you work with that director. I didn't even know you knew him. Or like, oh, you're on set with that producer. Like, oh, we're buds. Like, that's cool. So in my opinion, Instagram works really well for just showing people that you're out there and you're doing things. And it just builds your network more and more. And it's less about like, oh, that's a dope photo of a sunset. That's fine. You can go that route. People do it. I think it's fine. But in my opinion, it's more like, oh, you're still working. Cool. Or like, oh, we're checking out this new camera, if that's relevant to your people. Yes. Like a lot of the key groups I followed, and a lot of them are private because they can't really blast that hard. But I'm looking, they're like, oh, here's the car rig I did today. I was like, oh, well, cool. I remember that now. Like, that's cool. And like, or like the movie ops, it's like, oh, we just took delivery of the Movie Pro. It's like, good to know. Yep. Versus like you having to cold email, or send it like a newsletter. It's like, hey, I have it. I just see it on your Instagram feed. I'm like, and then the job comes up like, oh, we need like 3 movie operators. It's like, well, I know he has one. To me, it's just like a reminder of like, what you're doing. And I think the networking, it's a little bit more, I use it as like a networking tool. Not that I personally use it that way, but the people that are doing it that way, if you're at festivals, if you're working with certain people, just show it, you know, and as natural a way as you can. I think it works that way really well.
Agreed. And I would also add to that and say that I now, like, sometimes I'll take photos on set or something that's production related, and I won't post it because maybe I just did too many. But I have them, and like when there was a slow time in my career, like maybe a couple weeks of not really doing anything meaningful, I would use those old photos to post something, like what Chris is doing right now. But very,
throw that in there.
No, but very seriously, it's like even if you're not shooting that project right now and you shot it 2 months ago or 2 years ago, posting or documenting a photo or that moment at a time that you don't have anything else to show is a good little tool to use. And so we're running out of time, but I want to touch on one last topic because it's December. We all know that everyone's, the holidays are on everyone's mind. Things start to kind of wind down. Although I've noticed in my, years in LA that things kind of speed up in some ways. People are trying to get last minute projects done, right? Mark, I know you work on a few pilots usually in December. It's crazy. But Mark, maybe you want to start, just tell me, like, if you can give advice to any filmmaker this time, end of the year, end of the tax season, whatever, what's a good use of time with the last couple of weeks in the calendar year?
I will say that I've usually had a really busy December, but mainly it is because a lot of my primary work is slowing down. Yeah. And that is when I tend to, a lot of the people that I work with regularly for personal projects, we just take advantage of that time. We take advantage of the fact that people are out of town, so their house is available as a location. Yeah. You can literally house sit for somebody, like feed their dogs, and then you have a location to shoot in, and hopefully you let them know that you're shooting in their house. Yeah. So there's that. I do think, usually I don't have too many problems with write-offs because I buy a lot of toys. But I will say if I'm on the fence about something in December, I tend to end up buying it, to get a little extra write-off. But I don't know if that's the best advice because, I'm going to buy something in 2017 too. But I really just try to take advantage of the fact that, especially in Los Angeles, in a transplant city like this, people go away, things slow down. Traffic isn't as bad. Things are available. I think if you kind of pound the pavement, that's a perfect time to shoot something. I've squeezed in a feature at the very end of December, beginning of January, in between all the busy work when everybody else was, I feel like, just kind of hanging out and traveling for the holidays or just saving every penny because it is slow. I think that's an amazing time to just kind of hit it hard.
No, that's a great point, Mark. Matt, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I know a lot of people, like in New York specifically, because New York snows. I don't think it snows in California, but it snows here, and it makes production terrible, really bad. As far as like getting trucks to location, I've had shoots where we've shot over New Year's, and there was no lights. The grip truck just never made it. You're coming from New Jersey, never made it.
Oh God.
So if for all of those reasons, and because I work mostly advertising, everyone dumps the money in December, and I've shot gigantic commercials in December. I usually work when I was in New York, would work all December. It wouldn't slow down at all. But then January, it's like now the advertising cycle starts again. And now everyone takes vacation, Christmas into New Year's into whatever. And then all the advertising bids, all the upfronts have happened already. And like it takes like at least a month for everything to kind of like ramp back up. And a lot of my crew, who are the ones I think hit the hardest by this, because their rates don't necessarily allow them to save as hard as a DP might. A lot of them do save up and they go on vacation. A lot of my key grip will be like, I'm out. Like I'm literally out of New York City for December. And that's specific to New York, I think, because of the slowness. So I know traveling is definitely a thing. And, there's some times where I've gone to like LA or something like that, where it's just warmer. You can still shoot. But in New York, it does get difficult in the winters in general. So some people take vacation. So I guess that's my random anecdotal story for them. It's dark at 4. It's there's no daylight. So if you're shooting outside or like in a daylight situation, like what I've done, because like January, February, we do ad shoots and we're like at like a daylight loft. It's like, so we need to wrap this by like 3.
Yep.
So the calls get early and the days are just so short. And it's just like, It's just I've done so many ads where like the end of it is just dark. It's just dark.
Chris, what are your experiences working in December in the wintertime?
Well, I kind of did the same. Last year, I did a feature through December, and it was one of those ones that was $250,000 budget. So it was pretty much the only time I could take to do it when I didn't have anything else.
Yeah.
So that worked out really, really well. But generally, like definitely the last couple of weeks have not been a lot of work for me in the year. And then beginning of January has always been slow. So that's usually the time that I'm planning. I love the snowboarding. So I usually plan first week of January, like after everyone's back to work, and I go off. But yeah, that's been my plan pretty much for the last few years is I take the first week or two off of January and then I jump back in it.
It's a good way to kick off the year is working on your reel. But I do think, and it's a great way to end this discussion, is that as a freelancer, we work crazy long hours. It's really stressful. Don't forget to treat yourself. Don't forget to go on vacation. Don't forget to go do fun things. We have this unique position that we can kind of pick our schedule, and we kind of have these random, feast or famine type of flows of work. And when it's famine, when it's slow, obviously, like we talked about, be productive, of course, be creative, but also get out there and go see the world, go do things that some 9-to-5ers just don't have the opportunity to do. So I think those are amazing points made by all of you. So that is it, guys. This was awesome. This was so exciting. I also kind of cheated because I brought in like 3 good friends of mine to do this, but hopefully I'll do more of these, and I think this is super fun. So thank you guys all so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And happy holidays. I hope you guys do everything you said. Go shoot and go snowboard and do all that fun stuff and work on your reel. And hopefully we'll talk in early January.